Okay, hi. It's Lesson 8, Vocabulary, and I have a little fashion show for you before we get going with Lesson 8, and we'll see if you can figure out what our root word is. Okay, first I'm going to start out with one of my mom's hats, and it's going to be hard putting this over my headphones here, but my mom's hats from the 1930s. So she had it like this. I think this is how you wore it. My mom always had a hat on. So she had this nice little hat with this, and she always dressed up. She was a school teacher too, by the way. She's a hard school teacher. She's my school teacher for 2 years. But anyway, this is one of her hats. Then we move on to one of my hats from the 20s. I wore this from my 20s, not the 1920s. I wore this. So, see? Aren't I cute? And then we move on to this type hat. I wear this as well. My microphone's going all over. And then, of course, one from nowadays. Oops. Okay, here we go. So, we have a whole bunch of hats here. Anybody guess what our word or our root word may be? It's not hat, that's for sure. It's retro. It means back, behind, or backwards in Latin. And I'm going to put my oldest hat on for this because retro means looking back. Okay, so retroactive is a word that it's intended to apply or take effect at a date in the past. Okay, so now this could be positive or it could be a negative word, depending on what is retroactive. So if you have your boss who says to you, you're going to get a pay raise, and it's retroactive to January 1st, and say it's March 30th. So that would be 3 months before, right? January, February, March. So that's a good thing, because you're going to get paid for those days retroactively back to January 1st. So you're going to get 3 more months of your raise. On the other hand, if you have a tax person or the government that comes in and says, you had a higher tax rate and it is retroactive to 2011 and it's now 2013, that's not a good thing, because that means you're going to have to go back and pay taxes back until that date. So retroactive is intended to apply or take effect at a date in the past. Retrofit is to furnish something with new or modified parts or equipment that was not available at the time that it was manufactured. Okay, so in Huntington Beach we have a lot of these old Model T Fords and a lot of old cars around. And they drive them and they're all fancy and shiny, and then they show their engines. Okay, so if you take a Model T that was 1922 and you put in, you rebuild it and put a 1976 Ford motor into it, you have retrofitted your Model T. If building constructors come in and retrofit a building to make it earthquake safe, they're doing something to that building that the technology was not available when it was originally built, so that it can make it safer for earthquakes. So that's retrofit. Retrogress is to return to an earlier, usually worse or more primitive state. So this is This word has a negative connotation. It's not usually a positive one. So if you say the child's behavior has retrogressed, it has not improved. It's gone back to a state when it was not so good, or a previous state when it was not so good. And the last one is retrospective, and it's generally a comprehensive exhibition of or performance of an artist's output to date. So if we took, I don't know, say Britney Spears. Okay, she started out as a Mouseketeer way back when, and now she obviously does a lot of other stuff. So if you go to an exhibition or a performance of hers where she's performing Mouseketeer songs right up to the stuff that she's putting out this year, she's got representation from every year, that would be a retrospective of her career. So everything. So retro means back, behind, or backwards in Latin. Retroactive is intended to apply or take effect at a date in the past. Then we had retrofit, is to furnish something with new or modified parts or equipment that was optional or unavailable at the time it was manufactured. Retrogress is to return to an earlier, usually a worse or more primitive state. And retrospective is a general comprehensive exhibit or performance, usually covering an artist's output to date, so covering their whole career. So these are our 4 new words for this week. Okay, last week our sound was, and which should automatically trigger frag or fract, which was our Latin root word, which means to break or to shatter. We had fractious, apt to cause trouble or be unruly, stirring up quarrels, irritable. We had fragmentary, consisting of broken or disconnected parts, incomplete. We had infraction, the breaking of a law or a violation of another's right. And we had refraction, deflection of a ray of light or a wave of energy as it passes at an angle from one substance into another in which its speed is different. Okay, so you have these 8 words. We have our frag and fract root word from last week. We have our retro root word from this week. And you're going to match the definitions and drop them into the correct sentences in Canvas. Make sure you check your own work so you know what's going on. And then, of course, bring your notes in on Monday. And I will see you when I see you.